We'll get going. Thank you very much, Mr. Knopper. Appreciate you getting that ready for us. I'm going to call to order this special council meeting here on Monday, November 8th, here at 6:30 p.m. Hosted on Zoom due to COVID-19 restrictions. If anyone does have any questions, they can still reach out to us, and it is done by email to pnopper@townofstandrews.ca. At this point, we're going to look for recording of attendance, and I note that all members of council are in attendance, so thank you very much, council, for all being here. And I just wanted to say thank you very much. There was a couple of us that weren't able to be on the meeting last week, so thank you for all of your understanding and flexibility, so we could all be here as a complete team. And of course, to our presenter, which I'll introduce momentarily, I appreciate them rearranging their schedule as well. I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda. I've got two. I've got Councillor Heenan, seconded by Deputy Mayor Akaji. Any changes to the agenda? Okay, call the question. All in favor of approving the agenda, please raise your hand. That's everybody. The agenda has been approved. Any conflict of interest this evening? There's none. So we are going to jump right in to presentations. And this would be the West District Planning Analysis and Acting Sergeant Jason Hanson. It's a presentation on the Royal Canadian Mounted Police J Division, which is their quarterly report. So Corporal Hanson, I'll pass the floor over to you if there's anything you want to kind of open up. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to meet all members of council yet, but they are all here. I would assume that probably throughout the community you have, but welcome, and I'll hand it over to you to start, I guess.
Thank you, Your Worship. No, I haven't had a chance to meet every council member yet. I hope to soon, and it's nice to actually be able to present to council again. It's been a while, so I will be doing the quarterly report. I'd like to first start off, of course, by it's my pleasure and honor to be able to present this report here today in St. Andrews, the traditional unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Passamaquoddy people. So the report, which covers from July 1st to September 30th, starting first with calls for service, general overview. I don't know if you guys were given a copy of this report.
We all have it. Thank you very much, Corporal Hanson, but please take us through it.
Yeah, no, I'll go through it. It's easier if you're the chart. So the first half, since we're only doing up to the second quarter, the report compares fiscal year 2021 to the fiscal year ending in 2022. So if we look at calls for service in second quarter, they are up, which is one normally expects during the summertime, to a total of 169 calls for service of various types, compared to 161 last year at the same period. The top 10 occurrences being COVID, our number one is the Quarantine Act checks, which, takes up a bit of time because every time we have to try and track down and confirm people are there, and then prepare a report each time must be sent every time we do a check. So we did 26 of those, 20 false alarms, 10 abandoned 911 calls, the usual items lost and found, usually belonging to travelers. Moving speed enforcement, we did conduct 6 check stops, usually based on what the monthly priorities, usually related to seatbelt, distracted driving, that sort of thing. 6 mental health activities that were directly scored as mental health. Though, to be honest, a lot of our activities can be related directly or indirectly to mental health. Suspicious vehicle person, file 6. We had 5 index assaults, which included everything from physical to assault to some that actually were more of a sexual nature, and general assistance to the public. So there was the top 10. So we, of course, dealt with a number of variety of things. The next part of the report, it talks about a general clearance rate. I have a problem with doing that because of how it's viewed in the statistical. I don't know if my lens on the line to more clarify that, but generally the main areas that we were dealing with is crimes against person, break and enter, fraud, mischief, theft under, So the clearance rates are for sure ones that we resolved and lay the charge. Not cleared could be anything from insufficient to proceed to the uncooperative complainant or someone wanting to use alternative measures to resolve it. Same with crimes against persons. Usually assaults are about a 30% clearance rate, not clear at 50%. Again, anything from being unfounded to just simply not wanting to cooperate with police. And then other criminal code and traffic offenses. And again, I can drill down in more detail if you have questions about that. Otherwise, I'll just move into the broad attachment statistics for the reporting period. So when you look at our property crime, break and enter, about the yearly average is the same. Fraud, we saw a decrease in fraudulent complaints, which was good. Mischief, which could be everything from disturbing the peace to property damage, was half to the previous year at this time. And our theft count was about the same or from the previous year. This reporting period, we had 2 mental health calls, and this one were 6 mental health calls. But like I said, things like our assaults and other that kind of also have some element related to mental health. Crimes against person, as you know, is between 2021 and this year, we had an increase in assaults and other crimes against person files. And again, our harassment, extortion, robbery has doubled over last year. And drug offenses was only one major one reported over the previous fiscal year. When you look at traffic enforcement, our, again, averages are about the same every year. Moving traffic, maybe more charges laid this year than previous years, but general complaints remain the same. Our traffic collision stats, happy to say for this year, average on 1 collision per month. I think in part, well, a number of things, probably maybe less traffic, though during the summer we were pretty busy, almost like previous, like COVID didn't exist. But a lot of our intersection collisions were down because we did concentrate last year on stop sign enforcement. Other things related to traffic enforcement, speeding charges, about 6, general traffic rule enforcement and equipment inspection charges are about total of about 10 infractions, which charges were laid. School patrols, we have a way of tracking our vehicles when we conduct patrols, what our status is. So we're actually trying to increase the number of presence patrols in vehicle, either doing stationary traffic outside especially the elementary school, or in enforcement in the high school zone, and as well as the college. So we've, you know, obviously peaking in September, October, trying to maintain a number of school patrol hours, usually averaging about between 3.5 to 4.5 hours per month doing that. If we look at our proactive initiatives, road safety operations, so far we conducted 5 check stops during the recorded this review period, and the target was 4. School patrols, again, we've conducted a total of 4 this quarter, 7 previous for 11, and our target is 40 for the whole school year. And same can be for community contacts. We're only at 7, and we hope to conduct 20 by the end of the year. As far as the general crime trends here, Ed was doing a review of our stats, and some of the things we had noticed, a couple of files involving actually administering of noxious substances, particularly the date rate drug, and we have a couple of files under investigation where we're conducting tests into that, so that certainly is a concern. The other most serious incident, probably during the review period, was an incident of assault with a weapon in which persons were driving around town discharging an airsoft rifle at citizens. All 3 were arrested, taken in custody, and are currently before the courts in that matter. So those are probably the major things for right now. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Sergeant Hanson. I had a couple of comments. Originally, I did think that this was going to be, I appreciate you being on the line and certainly have respect for your position. So I had a few questions just overall about some complaints that we had received in regards to speeding. There's been an increase in the number of complaints that town councils received in regards to speeding, as well police coverage. But I'll be completely honest with you, you're the last person I kind of want to dive into that, because I've got to acknowledge you. You've been the most consistent presence that this community has had in a long time, and I at no fault of your own and all your hard work, I'm so appreciative that the community has you. Your leadership is greatly appreciated, but I didn't really want to dive into it too much, but I was hoping either through Mr. Spear, Mr. Knopp, or myself, or even perhaps Councillor Neal, who's public safety, that we could maybe schedule a follow-up meeting, just an offline meeting to discuss some proactive measures to deter speeding in the community. It's myself, as you know, I've been on council for almost 6 years, and I don't recall getting as many emails as I've got over the last 6 months. So it's just something I wanted to bring to your attention. I don't want to devise the plan on this call for the public to know if we're going to have certain actions, but I wanted to dive into that. And the other thing is, I'm completely aware that there's some people gaps in the region, but again, don't want to get into that with too much detail. So those are just some things. I don't know if there's an opportunity for you or for a member of the detachment to stop by town hall and meet with Mr. Spear and myself or Councillor Neal. I think that would be a proactive measure, just to talk about how we might be able to I guess you could say, back down a little bit. I do think it's such a small community that really, if a few people start getting some fines, I think everybody will follow suit, because it gets around town so quickly. But I didn't want to put you on the spot and dive into why that's happening today. And the other thing that I just had before I pass it to the rest of council is in the past, the town of St. Andrews has had the view that we have a separate contract and we should be treated differently. And although I do acknowledge we have a separate contract, I'm very aware of the fact that it is regional policing. And why I'm saying that is, before, the town of St. Andrews never had a representative on the quarterly policing meetings. And I wanted to have a conversation with this council that I think that's very short-sighted. Crime does not stop in or out of the town of St. Andrews borders as a community. If there's a problem in St. Stephen, or a problem in St. George, or a problem in St. Andrews, there's a good chance that will spill into other communities. So to have a regional meeting, which St. Andrews participates, I see it only as a strength, versus the alternative, which we've done in the past, is not meet at all. So I just was wondering, is the quarterly meeting still happening now? And is there an opportunity to get someone from St. Andrews to start attending those?
Well, I know, Your Worship, actually, they just had a quarterly meeting about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So I certainly do think that that is something that's very valuable, because I certainly echo your points that crime doesn't stop, and usually there is an overlap. Some of the most serious incidents that just happen outside of town, but involving us, are, the fire department and the witnesses being from St. Andrews, but it doesn't meet this report because it happened in both Quebec or vice versa. So, yeah, and then certainly there's a growing trend of catalytic converter thefts, and they've been going everywhere. And as far as your comments about speeding, they're certainly well taken, but I guess you should know that it is actually a common complaint throughout the Charlotte County. I don't know whether it's COVID or whatever, people, once they got back out on the road, forgot throughout the rules of the road book with them, but it is certainly a common problem. I'd certainly be happy to discuss. There are certain proactive things and educational steps that can be done. And like with anything else, if people have a problem, they can definitely directly call the police or report on the plate number, or they need to do. Appreciate that they'll contact the town, but sometimes if they want immediate action, if you report it to the police, we can more quickly act on it if we know it's a problem at the time.
And is it you yourself well, not yourself, but are you the ones that determine where those, I guess you could say the portables, I want to call it the wrong words, that keeps track of speeders? It gives you a reading to remind you that you're speeding, is that something that we book through, and Mr. Spear might know this, is that something that we book through you? Because I think sometimes to your point is it's just education.
Yeah, there's two options. There is one that the RCMP owns through St. George, or you could book it through me or to any member, but there is one actually owned by the service district, and I believe that's kept in the town of St. George. I can't think of offhand his direct contact, but if you were to contact someone from the Regional Service Commission, they have their own, and then we have one as well, though I know some of the data processing functions on ours is not working for some reason. So, but either one can be utilized, and I certainly would, if it becomes available, I have a couple of people in town too that have offered their property as well for us to use it to deploy it, or if the town got theirs from the service district, and they certainly could deploy. They could certainly provide that information to Mr. Spear or Mr. Knopper as well.
Perfect. All right. Well, Mr. Spear, we'll do that as a follow-up. I think that we should probably put some of those in the community in certain areas, and especially the one that gives us data, because there is a couple streets that we've had multiple people complain on the same street saying that it's a frequent challenge. So if we're able to get that data and give it to the RCMP, that would probably give them some trends of what time of day it's happening, things like that make enforcement easier. So I'll open it up to other members of council or staff. Would anyone have a question or anything on the report or anything else? Since we did schedule this as a half hour, it's a little longer than a normal. The ones that you used to read us, and we just did it as part of our monthly meeting. This one's just more of a back and forth. Any other member of council? We've got Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sergeant Hanson, just to help me better understand the data as it's presented here, when does your fiscal year begin and end?
So we operate based on the federal fiscal year from April to April, or March 31st. So the second quarter is from July 1st to September 30th. And then of course the next quarter will be from October to the end of December, then January to March 31st, the final. So we operate April to April.
Okay, so fiscal 2022 begins in April, or began in April?
Yeah, so we're, I know it's confusing reading it. So it's the fiscal year ending 2022. So we're start reporting from basically April 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2022 is the review year. So this second quarter is for 2021, and then so when you see reference to FY 2021, that would have been from April 2020 to March 31st, 2021 for the previous fiscal year, and then our comparisons for 2022 always means the year ending.
Perfect, thank you.
All right.
Any other member of council? Councillor Heenan.
First of all, Sergeant, thank you very much for your report. It was very easy to understand. I just had an observation, no data to back this, but you know how you park a car out at the RCMP station and it usually stays there overnight, etc. Sometimes someone has left one down by the roadside and it's a noticeable change when people come into town to slow them up. And I have sat and just watched for fun. There's been nobody in it. It's just the presence of the car. I'm not saying that it be there every night, because that's like cry wolf. But if it can be once in a while, people at a distance really do not know if there's anyone in it or not. And as I said, I've walked down there and I've noticed people's brake lights come on when they're coming in from 127. And it's just an idea I wanted to throw out there. Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Sergeant.
No problem.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. Any other members? See Councillor Goodwill.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sergeant Hanson just wanted to chime in and echo the mayor's thanks for your many years of service. Been sitting here a long time, and you've been serving the town of St. Andrews a long time. And with all your years in, I'm sure you could go anywhere. And we're certainly appreciative that you continue to remain in our community and bring all your professionalism and diligence to the residents of St. Andrews. As to a question, I know a lot of other municipalities in New Brunswick are wrestling with some of the noise that the new mufflers have on some of the cars. And living down here on Water Street, there are definitely a few of those extra loud mufflers in our community, and just wondering how we might deal with that or address that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gumshill. It's a very good question. I know those loud mufflers are kind of one of my pet peeves too. It's, I mean, there's a couple options. I mean, when we're actively pulling someone over, we can issue what's called a notice and order and have them inspected. The other option is that, you know, people can certainly call like public safety, commercial vehicle enforcement, and you have plate numbers and that, and they of course have more of the meters and items to properly test them. I don't have a specific meter we carry on shift, other than if it's annoying to me, I'll pull them over, and if I think that it's defective or not, the operating policy, issue what's called a notice and order and have them sent to a garage or an inspection point. But you know, it's like everything else. If someone has a vehicle that's constantly doing it or consistent, and they have a plate number and they report it to the police, we can certainly investigate it.
Thank you for that, Sergeant Hanson.
No problem.
Anyone else? Staff, anything from you? All right. All right. Well, we really appreciate the presentation of the report, Sergeant Hanson, and once again, just wanted to say thank you for all that you do. We're well aware that you're doing more with less right now, and it's greatly appreciated. And the other thing is you know, it was indicated in your report, but your number one call right now is around COVID-19. So that is taking you away from probably what's normal day-to-day crime as well, or at least prevention or school checks. So council is aware that it's not normal times, and these are things that, you know, 2 years ago as an RCMP detachment, you wouldn't have had to deal with. So anyway, we really appreciate you jumping on, giving us some time this evening, but we won't keep you any longer, and just wanted to say thank you very much. I don't know, Mr. Knopper, Mr. Spear, if there's any point keeping them on for question period. I guess quickly, was there anything that came in, Mr. Knopper?
Your worship, at this time, no, but we could also offer that we do have the regular council. If anybody has a question in regards to the RCMP, you can also be brought up then.
Perfect. They certainly can, and but we will let Sergeant Hanson go. So thank you for your time again, Sergeant Hanson. Have yourself a wonderful evening. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate your engagement. It's always nice to actually have questions after ending the presentation. Everyone was listening. Thank you.
There you go. There you go. All right. So is there any comments from any member of council? I have none myself. We have a regular meeting for general comments as well that you could always add it in at that time. All right. Since there is none, of course, there was no new business or questions. So no reason to go to closed session. So I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn. I see Deputy Mayor Akaji, a seconder. Councillor Gumashell, all in favor of adjourning? We are adjourned. Thank you. We'll get going for the 7 o'clock meeting shortly.
Your worship, you're now live to Facebook.
Thank you. We'll kick it off in about 1 minute. All right, it's 7 p.m. So I'm going to call to order the regular council meeting here on Monday, November 8th. And it will be hosted on Zoom due to COVID-19 restrictions and streamed live via Facebook. If anyone does have any questions throughout the evening, there will be a question period at the end, and you can send any questions to pnopper@townofstandrews.ca. And I know Mr. Knopper will have that in the comments of the video, so people will have the correct spelling of that. So at this point, I'll be looking to record the members of attendance for this evening. I note that all members of council are in attendance, so thank you, council, once again. And again, thank you for your flexibility of hosting this 1 week later due to a couple of us not being able to make it last week. I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda. But before I do, I'm just going to quickly bring up an email here. It's I call it almost a friendly amendment that just to let you know that in addition to the going into closed session, we're going to need to call it a friendly amendment that will also be going to the closed session for Local Governance Act 68(1)D, which is the proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land. So do I need a formal motion, or could that be friendly since it's already as a closed session, Mr. Knopper?
If council's okay with it, friendly is fine.
Okay, anyone have any objection to that? I'll call it a friendly then. Okay, so all in, oh, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Akachi.
Is it 1D or 1G?
So it's both is what it is. So the one that's in there, this is an addition because there's a couple of items that we'll be discussing in closed session this evening.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor, or sorry, first of all, could I have a mover to approve the agenda? Councillor Heenan, a seconder. Deputy Mayor Akaji, any changes? Okay, all in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye. Agenda has been approved. So disclosure of conflict of interest, we'll be looking for anyone. I think Councillor Blanchard, go ahead.
Yeah, just to declare conflict of interest on the presentation from Mr. Pierce, the development on Mowat Drive.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, myself, I'll be declaring two this evening. I will be declaring a conflict on this first presentation. I'll be listening in, obviously. I have no personal opposition to it, but I do note that Charlie Bourgois development does abut adjacent to my parents' property. So just as a best practice, I'll be sitting that out, put full faith in all of council, of course, even if I'm not there. And the other one that I'll be declaring on is the one that I have the whole way through is PW 210804, as it is directly beside my place of employment. All right, so at this point, we're going to jump into presentations, which is Charlie Bourgois. I'll pass over to you, Deputy Mayor, and I'll join back after the presentation.
Thank you, Your Worship. Welcome, Mr. Bourgois, for the presentation on the proposed housing development at Mowat Drive and Bar Road, PID number 1326081. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to present our project. I'm joined this evening by my wife, Colleen. We've traveled and lived in many places, but St. Andrews remains one of our most favorite places in the world. We enjoyed the 10 summers we spent there operating the historic Hockey Academy. And we purchased this particular property in 2004 with the intention to build a summer home for our family. And now we want to build a community, more people to enjoy a glass of wine with. We want to invest in St. Andrews, and we want to develop something that the town will be very proud of. To accomplish that goal, we've assembled a very experienced team. I also want to thank Xander, Paul, and Chris for their guidance, allowing us to get to this stage of the process. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Steve Davies. He's with Local Development Group. He'll provide you with details on our Van Horn Garden Homes. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie and Colleen. Appreciate the opportunity. I guess a question for Mr. Knopper. Are you planning to show the presentation at this stage?
I can show, you can show your presentation. Do you need me to put up a copy of it?
Yes, please.
Okay, you're gonna have to give me a second.
So by means of introduction, we're working with Charlie and Colleen to manage our way through the development process within the town. The development that you'll see coming up shortly is in the tentative plan stage, and that is we can expect some adjustments to the plan as a development agreement would be worked on with town staff. So some minor adjustments are anticipated, but the overall theme and the scope of what's being presented is consistent, and that is effectively garden homes, single level homes, units in sort of a townhouse style that are really targeted towards the mature adult marketplace in St. Andrews. The overall goal here is to be able to work through the development agreement stage with the town, go through the rezoning and the subdivision approval process, and anticipating that a construction start would be in the spring of 2022. And the rest of the slides as they come up, we'll be able to talk through those.
Mr. Davies, the council actually has a copy of your presentation. Maybe you should just start till Paul gets caught up with us on the technical side, so not to waste time.
Okay, well, I'll speak to it in general terms. So what we're anticipating is an access off the Bar Road, forming a cul-de-sac development with the properties developed around the cul-de-sac. Excuse me, all accesses to the properties would be through the Bar Road and the new proposed public street. So no accesses directly to Mowat, and the way the properties are set up is they would access on the new proposed street. Within that subdivision plan, it's anticipated that a new water line will be required to loop. So the property would see, as far as development approval goes, see a water line being developed along Bar Road to tie into Mowat, and some discussions with the town around cost sharing. The infrastructure would be anticipated going forward. The homes themselves, we would anticipate that the first block C on the plan would be developed first, and then the balance of the properties developed over the course of the next few summers as demand occupies and fills those units. In high level, that's the primary piece. We believe that the development proposal does meet the development objectives expressed by the town in their municipal planning, and feel that it's a good fit. And as Charlie mentioned, it's a quality development, and we believe it'll be a feature added to the portfolio of homes and residences in the community. With that, without getting into too much detail, I'll have the floor open, I guess, for questions and comments from council.
Okay, thank you very much. Council, do you have any questions or any information that you want to share? Oh, Councillor Heenan, you have the floor.
And there's the floor plans. No, I'm kidding. Thank you, Your Worship. Just wondering what your rent range would be, or what you're thinking your rent range would be per unit.
That's to be determined as we get through the development agreement. But we're certainly conscious of what the marketplace is through the separate process that the town has for the RFP for other properties. We're able to receive the market information, market survey. So we're conscious of that. You know, in other communities, there are comparable units that have been developed. So we would expect to fall in that sort of range. And that's somewhere between, you know, 1,400 and 1,800 in that neighborhood. Now we do anticipate that the true cost, the true offer will be presented sometime after Christmas. So that'll be forming part of the marketing plan, the marketing communications that go forward. So that helps to bring out the other point that there's, while this project is new for the town of St. Andrews, it's not new in other communities. And there's a good experience, good track record with those types of developments, and the demand is there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. Anyone else on council? Councillor Neil?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor. And thank you guys for the presentation. The question I had, again, just looking at the little site map, and again, I understand that this is tentative. the area marked out for each unit, essentially, is that representing like a lot size, or is that actually representing the garden home itself?
Yeah, there are smaller rectangles. If you look at block C, there are smaller rectangles. It'd be 6 of them side by side. That's a preliminary footprint of the unit. So they're roughly 1,350 to 1,360 square feet. The subdivision application would create the blocks. So this is a rental, long-term rental property. So it's not where each unit has its own PID. One large block would be proposed to be one PID with 6 units upon that.
Okay, thank you. And so my next question, I guess, would be with just regards to the setbacks from the back of the units to basically the property line. If I'm correct, it's showing about 7.5 meters. Like, are you envisioning a backyard to these units at all, or again, the 7.5 meters, I guess, to the property lines is not a huge space, but I'm just wondering if you could elaborate on that a bit.
Yeah, it's not a huge space by call it rural estates standards or town estate standards, but by this type of property, the backyards, the side yards are smaller in comparison, and typically it's not utilized by residents there. So we have gone through an initial review with the town planning, and the plan that is presented does meet the development standards of the town.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Neil. Anyone else, Council? Councillor Gomichelle, and then Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for your presentation, all your hard work on this, fellas. My question is for Xander. You said you've been working with him all along, and I'm just wondering how this fits into kind of our overall hopeful inventory in terms of the different types of housing we're hoping to bring to town. Could you be able to speak to that, Xander?
Sure. Thank you, Councilor Gomichelle. So there's definitely a need for this type of housing, and I think it's interesting to see that this does seem to be where the market is going as well. The next presentation tonight is I think a kind of similar style, and I think the project we discussed on Victoria Terrace is again slightly always different ownership styles. So having, I think, long-term rental units, that's really important, and they I don't know if there's a particular demographic that these are expected to be marketed to, but I think they would meet the needs of young professionals, of seniors. So I think it does certainly meet needs of housing in St. Andrews for sure. I think there's other needs, but no one project can be expected to meet all the needs.
Thank you, Xander. It's good to know that there are a lot of balls in the air, but we do kind of have an overarching goal that we're striving towards, and that you're working with the developers to help us meet that. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Gopin, and thank you, Councillor Gomichelle. Councillor Hurdle first, and then Councillor Blanchard. Sorry, Councillor Blanchard, but Councillor Hurdle was first.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you again for the presentation. I just had a quick question in regards to shared green space at all. If this is a rental situation, is there any thought to having a communal garden or communal green space to be shared by the tenants?
Yes, absolutely. That's going to be a big part of this. We certainly want to create that community atmosphere, and that's definitely going to be part of our plans.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hurdle. Councillor Blanchard.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And thank you for the presentation, everyone. It was an excellent presentation. The plans look good as they are. I just had a question about, one question, I guess. Well, two, actually. One, you'd mentioned in your presentation from the town, one of the asks from the town would be sort of a cost sharing potentially on the water main installation up along Bar. In the presentation itself, the actual physical presentation, it says contribute the cost of the water main installation. I take that as it's written to say that the town would cover all the costs as opposed to a cost sharing. Not sure which was intended, my second question would be, follow-up to that would be to Mr. Spear. I know Mr. Acton's not on the line, but do we have a sense of how much that actually would cost to extend the water main down Bar to that point?
Well, actually, at this point, that was going to be my question, or whether or not they were asking for that, because there actually already is a connection to that property along Mowat Drive.
Correct. So there, I guess in terms
So
of
does it go back?
terminology, in order for the development to have water to feed the units, a water line would be extended from the existing stub that's at the, call it the bulb of the cul-de-sac, make its way up towards Bar. And that water line would service the units being proposed. In order to have the availability and its confidence of water circulation for the town, the intent would be to extend the line onto Bar, across Bar to Mowat. And that's the portion of water line that we'd be talking about in terms of being a town's expense. So it's cost shared in terms of the overall infrastructure, but that specific piece is the piece that's been identified along Bar, stubbing into the new proposed right of way.
And at this point, Councillor, I don't like to we've done it, but I don't have the number in front of me, so I don't like to make an estimate that could be 50% or 100% off, but I can supply that to council tomorrow once I go back and have a look.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. Does that answer your question, Councillor Blanchard?
It does, and yes, I'll look forward to receiving the information from Mr. Spear. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other further discussion or questions, council? Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. We will be discussing this at a later date. And thank you for coming tonight.
Can we provide provide what the next steps are in terms of the council's process?
Councillor Spear, Mr. Spear, sorry. Can you
Probably
answer that?
Mr. Gopen for this one, I do know, but he had it laid out earlier for us, so if you don't mind. But it's
Okay,
actually, the subdivision plan will have to be approved by council first, I believed, but go ahead, Mr. Gopen, if you're on.
Sure. So there's two processes that will kind of happen in parallel because they're dealing with the same issue. There's the subdivision and the rezoning, and I don't have it in front of me, but there's a series of dates, and we have the applications for both. So really at this point, it's I need to do a little bit of work and get some reports in, but it should be something that could be before council at the next meeting.
Okay.
In terms of my timeline of when it could get there, and I think that's really as soon as it could happen.
And that'd be the next regular meeting in December.
Oh, okay.
Which would be hopefully the first reading of the rezoning plus the tentative subdivision plan, correct, Xander?
Yeah, I think we start with the rezoning because that's more of a legislative process. There's the 3 readings, the public hearing, and views of PAC. The tentative subdivision plan, I've already done a site review on it, so I'll double check, but as I can tell, it doesn't need any variances. So then it's just going to PAC to discuss the public road and land for public purposes, and we would discuss the rezoning at that same time with PAC, and it's lined up so that both of the council's assent to this plan of subdivision, if that is assented to, and the 3rd reading of the rezoning would happen at the same meeting, but there will be some work behind the scenes that needs to happen for the subdivision agreement. Still things to work out there.
Plus the development agreement will have to be taken on too, correct?
Yeah. If council wishes to have a development agreement with the rezoning as well, you can do both the subdivision and development. And yeah, they deal with more or less the same thing. So I don't know if it's necessary to have both, but you could if you wanted.
So council will have that by the next regular meeting.
Yeah, they'll have, there'll be a rezoning bylaw that needs, is bylaw amendment and my report with that recommendation for the zone and how council should proceed with it, in my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Gopin. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anything further, council, or Charlie and your group?
No, we look forward to, the process and, developing a first-class project.
Well, thank you very much for presenting to us tonight. It's in detail. We've got it, and we will look at it. And as Mr. Gopin says, we will receive more information before the regular meeting for next month. And then our staff will be in contact.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I appreciate you leading that first presentation. We're going to continue the theme of housing. We know that affordable housing is important to the community, but we also know that diversifying our housing inventory is just as important. There's a lot of people that are looking to maybe downgrade or switch the type of home that they're in. So we'll transition now to Ross A. Pierce, who's doing a presentation on a proposed housing development off of Mowat Drive, which is PID 15036031. Welcome, Mr. Pierce. Thank you for joining us this evening, and I'll pass the floor over to you to present to council as well.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and good evening, members of council. Right off the top, I would also like to echo Mr. Bourgois' comments that we've had great support from Xander, from Mr. Spear as well, and Mr. Knopper putting up with my technical difficulties. So we can tell that the town is open for business. We're excited to hopefully do some more work with the town. I'm going to try and share my screen, and I better do this now so there's not a technical glitch here. So am I okay to try it now?
Yep.
Okay. Hopefully we can move through this.
We can see your presentation.
Good. So once again, good evening. And first and foremost, thank you for the opportunity to introduce Belmax Court. I was not aware of Mr. Bourgois' presentation tonight, but certainly applaud what he's trying to do. And I think there is an opportunity based on my understanding of the market demand for multiple developments in the area. We will be calling our development Belmax Court. And a little bit of background for those of you who may not know, I'm a proud graduate of SJDA many years ago now. I'm a commercial lawyer with a practice in St. John, New Brunswick, and I'm also a principal of Belmax. Belmax is a real estate developer. We've been focused primarily in Calgary over the last number of years. With COVID, life has changed for all of us, and we're looking at opportunities a little closer to home. I have many friends and family still living in St. Andrews, and I've certainly followed with interest council's deliberations and presentations, and also looked at the housing studies and the more recent St. Andrews needs study. And we're hopeful that Belmax Court might provide at least a small part of the overall solution. I think it will have to come from various sources. So Belmax Court would be a 2-acre development off of Mowat Drive. We really like this particular lot. It's a primarily treed lot, and that's very important to us with this development. We hope to preserve and maintain not only the privacy of the development, but to respect the privacy of our neighbors. So the darker green area that you see in this picture would be existing trees, and we hope to preserve as many of those as possible. The type of development that I'll show you a couple of pictures, and you have that in your package. These are low profile, single story, slab on grade construction, and that type of construction allows us to really do a lot less aggressive excavation and preserve as much of the natural landscape and terrain as possible. And that's certainly an objective. My understanding, again, we're not quite as far advanced in terms of specific site plans that would come. We wanted to get feedback at this early stage, but the site servicing should not be overly problematic. There may be some issues with storm site servicing, but we think we can try and navigate through those. As I mentioned, these are low profile designs. This is an elevation concept only. And I would caution you that these are just early days look and feel. This is supposed to represent a weathered shingle look, and we're looking to preserve the overall architectural integrity of the town. And certainly it's a very popular coastal Cape Cod look. The next one is perhaps a little bit more modern with a blue theme with white trim. When we're ultimately through the more detailed drawings and provide a bit more information and 3D renderings, the overall palette of the development would be something where all of the different complexes would come off the same palette. People more talented than myself certainly would pick that and make sure it is in keeping with the landscape design. As I said, these are low profile slab on grade single story living. This is a very typical layout. This is again a concept only. This particular one is about 1,000 or 1,100 square feet, 1,165. We haven't finalized the exact footprint now, but they'll all be 2-bedroom, 2-bath, single car garage. We have an open concept kitchen that flows into a dining area and a great room or family room that would again flow into a small outside patio. That is important to us, again, that this open feel, and that's why it's important to us to preserve the natural privacy that we have with the treed lot. We think that in the end, the concepts will look very similar to these. These are developments near where I live in Rossay. They're extremely popular, and I think it's very similar to some of the exterior renderings that Mr. Bourgois had, and I think that look and feel is very complementary to the town. One of the key selling features of this development is it would be a condominium development, and as a result, it would be no maintenance living. All of the outside work, the lawn mowing, as we're going to soon have to do, the snow shoveling and snow removal, that would be looked after by the condominium corporation. And all the members would obviously be members of that condominium corporation. They would own their own units, but they would be members of the condo corporation. We don't have specific price points on these yet. These would not, unlike Mr. Bourgeois' development of rentals, which I think is a great idea. These would be condo units that would be owned by the owners. We don't have a specific price point, but we are mindful that we're trying to target both entry-level, first-time home buyers, young professionals. We see that in the market demand. And also people at the other end of the spectrum who are looking to downsize and maybe enjoy some no maintenance living. And we think that may free up some of the existing town inventory for people who have other objectives, maybe with their lifestyle choices. The price point again would hopefully fall into that market range. It would probably be in the early 300s to mid 300s. There would be opportunities to maybe upgrade as your budget and preferences allowed, but these are early days. We're just trying to get initial feedback from the town, from council, in addition to the feedback we've received so far. If the permitting process goes well, we hope to start in early 2022 as well. We've had good discussions with some very capable local builders. We have to meet their schedule as well. They're extremely busy, but we think we could, best case scenario, achieve some occupancy by this time next year. This would be phased, so we would develop the complexes as the market demand allowed and as construction scheduling allowed. So I'm mindful of your time and don't want to overstay my welcome here, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions you may have, and look forward to continuing to work with the town and members of the community in moving this project forward. So thank you once again for your time this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pierce. Appreciate the presentation. I guess before I pass it over to council, this one I'm not as familiar with. This is some in the past. So that I guess you could say easement to get to the property, would that be like up to code, or would that be like a private driveway that goes into this particular development? And that might be even a question for Mr. Gopin as well.
Yeah, our concept would be that it would be a laneway. There's a 30-foot access along there, so it would be a private laneway. It would be maintained by the condominium corporation, but accessible by 2 vehicles. Again, people are essentially driving into a long driveway there that sweeps into the development.
Perfect. Definitely attractive looking designs. This is probably more of a question for Mr. Gopin. What type of variances would we be looking at for a development like this that I guess PAC directly, but in the same side, council should be aware of?
Sure. As well as variances, this property is currently zoned. It's actually a state residential. So it would need a rezoning for this. MR2 zone is the only one that allows condos currently. And I think that would work generally. Because of the easement, there's actually no road frontage. So there would need to be a variance on that, which I think given that there's no road frontage of it and there is allowances for that, it makes some sense. I think the other variance that does kind of come into play, given that this isn't a more low density residential area, is that there is a requirement that the side yard abutting the serviced residential or estate residential zone, and this property has multiple side yards abutting those zones, it needs to be, what is the exact number? I know it's something that would require a variance. There may be some possibility of adjusting the site plan. There's not a lot of room to bring the units in closer to the shared driveway with the current driveway lengths, but a creative designer could maybe come up with some solution. The required side yard would be 15 meters if it's abutting the ER and SR zones, and pretty much every property line there is abutting an SR or ER zone. So that's something that PAC would have to address, and then council, you would have to address the rezoning.
Thank you. And how many units, sorry, it might have been covered in the presentation, I apologize. How many units total was that mock diagram? It was.
So initially we had contemplated, I had someone do a schematic just to open the discussion. We looked at 15 units. We haven't finalized the exact number of units. We would want to work closely with council and with Mr. Gopin as well to make sure that we design a quality product. I'm not sure if it would end up, it would be in the 12 to 15 range, and we would look for the appropriate variances. We want to be good neighbors, so we don't want to create excess density in there, but at the same time, we think that the scale of this can be in the 1,000 to 1,100 square foot footprint, maybe smaller than that. That may allow us to tuck a few more units, but the real objective tonight is to get feedback and hopefully design and refine our concepts here while being mindful that we would like to get this to market next year.
Perfect. And thank you for that. There's no question about it. I thought the designs were quite attractive. Just a question is that easement's a little unusual versus something that we don't see a lot of. It goes between two houses. I was just wondering, how close is that easement to each of those houses? Is that like, it's not a very wide area, if I'm picturing the right two houses. How close is it to those houses?
You are right along the property line. I've already reached out and through our agent Carl, we've reached out to both of those landowners and made sure that we wanted to work cooperatively with them. We hope to landscape it in a way that's complementary to their homes. The easement, the property it's actually over, they're aware of the easement, and what they'd asked for is some trees along the easement to make sure it's a natural buffer along there. And we want to be good neighbors here, so we want to respect those wishes. But one would run along Mr. Eldridge's property line, and the other obviously over the dominant parcel there. But we want to do this in the right way, and we think we can accomplish that and make sure that they're comfortable with how we would present it.
Thank you. Any other members of council? Sorry for all the questions. I just wanted to dive. I'm sure some of those are your questions as well. Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Your Worship. You sort of touched on my question that I had. I mean, the address that you've given is 200 Mowat. There is a house on that lot currently. Is this just going to be going to the right-hand side where that driveway currently is? And is the vision to kind of just extend that driveway down and around, or how should I picture it?
Oh, okay. Well, actually, if I can, this may be above my pay grade, but I'll start to share the screen again, and maybe I can point it out. So, okay, let's go back up here. Let's try to go back up here. Okay, I don't know if you can see my mouse.
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Okay, so this area here with these two, the renderings of the cars, that is actually the current lot. So this lot here is Mr. Eldridge's, and there's a property line along there. There's a large tree. I think we'd even preserve the tree, and we just have to limb the bottom limb. So if you're in the Tim Hortons parking lot and you're looking straight across, the house, the main house will be on the right-hand side, and its driveway is over in this area here. Does that help?
That does. That's perfect. So I think it's a house with a red roof. I'm not sure who the owner is. You'd be passing just to the left of that house between the Eldridges and there.
That's correct. The owner is, their last name is Craig. I haven't met them personally, but Mr. Deering has on my behalf. And I have spoken just briefly to Mr. Eldridge about it. So. And this is, again, I want to emphasize, we intend to do this in a way that's very open with lots of feedback. And we want to make sure everyone feels good about the development at the end of the day, because we intend to do more of these, but we also look at this as a bit of a flagship back in the Maritimes for what we're trying to achieve.
Thank you very much.
Any other member of council? Councillor Heenan.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council, and thank you, Mr. Pierce. It was a great presentation. I'm quite impressed by your homework. Thank you. No, I really am. I mean, you've come prepared for this. I am a sitting member on the PAC. That's my portfolio, and I'm saying for myself only, I'm impressed that you've already contacted the landowners and have worked out easements, etc. And I think homework goes a long way. And I just want to say thank you for that. It was a good presentation and I'm quite pleased. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. Any other member of council? All right, so let's the same as the last one, let's talk about next steps to find what's required. Mr. Gopin, is there kind of what the next step would it be? Some type of motion from council in regards to a subdivision type agreement as well, or what would be or rezoning, I would assume as well?
Yes, so Your Worship, in this case, no subdivision is required. It would all stay as one lot. It would, there'd be some condo corporation stuff under the Condo Act that Mr. Pierce would have to deal with in terms of setting that up. But that's not anything council or myself would be involved in. So it would really just be the rezoning, and it's when Mr. Pierce is ready to apply, if he wants to do more tweaks to the site plan, he would submit that application, and we'd go from there. So first reading, second reading, views of PAC, public hearing, that whole process again.
Absolutely. So for anyone that is watching this online, if you have any concerns, then it would require rezoning, which means that it would require hearing of objections. So if anyone that hasn't already talked to Mr. Pierce or his team would like to obviously have a voice, there will be an opportunity as part of engagement. I'm sure Mr. Pierce, from what he's saying, would definitely love to hear it as well and find a solution that works for everybody should this go ahead. So thank you very much, Mr. Pierce, for your time this evening. We'll follow up, but it sounds like to me that if we're going to go on the previous one, Mr. Bourgois, it makes sense that at the same time we start discussing this one to find out where it might lead to. But appreciate the presentation, the time, and of course, it's always good to have an SJDA alumni decide to invest in their community that they grew up in. So thank you very much. It's kind of nice to see two potential housing developments with two different people that have connections to the community. So again, thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, and thank you, members of council.
All right, everybody, that takes care of presentations for tonight. I'm just, again, thrilled that we've had so many different discussions so far over housing. We've had in the first few months here, more different options as far as discussions on housing than we had the previous 5 years on my council term. So I don't take this lightly. A lot of good opportunities, and I know that we have some more discussions that will be happening again later tonight. So at this point, we're going to get into the approval of minutes. I'm going to try to make up some time here, so I'm going to go through this very quickly. If you do have any concerns over any of the minutes, I'll just ask you to grab my attention quickly. We're going to get right into the minutes of the 10:02 special meeting of council, October 2nd, 2021. Can I have a mover? Councillor Heenan, seconder, Councillor Gumashell. Any changes to those minutes? Okay, all in favor of adopting those minutes, please signify by saying aye. All those minutes have been carried. The next one are the minutes of the regular council meeting of October 4th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Could I have a mover? Deputy Mayor Akaji, a seconder would be Councillor Blanchard. Any discussion on those ones? Okay, all in favor of approving those minutes, please signify by saying aye. Those ones have been approved as well. We're into the third set, which is the special meeting of council on October 6th, 2021 at 6:30. Could I have a mover? Councillor Blanchard, seconder is Councillor Hurdle. Changes on that one? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Those are approved. We're into the minutes of the special meeting of council on October 18th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. Look for a mover. Deputy Mayor Akaji and a seconder is Councillor Heenan. Discussions on that one? All in favor of approving those minutes, please raise your hand as well. And anyone opposed? All right, that was carried. So we're getting into the fifth set, which is the minutes of the public hearing of objection on October 25th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. A mover, please. Councillor Gumashell and seconded by Councillor Blanchard. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving those minutes, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. Those are approved. The minutes of the 21-10-25 special meeting of council, which is October 25th at 2021 at 6:45 p.m. A mover for those ones. Councillor Hurdle, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Akaji. Any changes? All in favor of approving those minutes, please raise your hand. Thank you. And now we're on to the minutes of the committee of council meeting, October 25th, 2021 at 7:15. Look for a mover. Got Councillor Hurdle and seconded by Councillor Blanchard. Any changes on those ones? Seeing none. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Perfect. Those are all approved. And the last ones are the special meeting of council on October 27th, 2021 at 6:30. Last time for the minutes. This is a legal requirement, a mover, Deputy Mayor Akaji and a seconder. I see Councillor Blanchard. And any discussions on these last minutes? All in favor of approving this last set of minutes, please signify by saying aye. That is everybody. Those minutes have been approved. Thank you for your patience. We flew through those as quickly as possible. We're jumping right into nothing directly under communications, but we do have a staff report. I will pass it over to Mr. Spear. I noticed that your connection's a little lagging tonight. If there is any challenge, I'll ask Mr. Knopper maybe to read your report if by chance you do get frozen, if that's okay.
Definitely. In fact, your worship, maybe if Mr. Knopper is prepared, he should just go ahead because I've been having a technical meltdown tonight. So chances are better if he could do it.
Sounds good. It does look to be lagging. Sorry to put you on the spot, Mr. Knopper. Is that okay if you read that or?
All good,
okay,
all good, your worship. So if you're ready, so council, this is Chris Spear, CAO, Treasurer's report for November 1st, 2021. As we open November, we should all take the time to remember our veterans and the sacrifices all of our warriors and their families made. From the Great War to modern day conflicts, even those who return have lifelong scars from their experiences. So thank you for your sacrifices and services. Thank you to council for allowing me to update you on the ongoing affairs of the town. So council, the 2022 budget was brought forward to the public presentation on Wednesday, October 27th on the agenda for discussion tonight and if acceptable for final approval. As already discussed, council is planning to reduce the mill rate to $1.20 on a $100 assessment. There are significant capital investments planned by council in both the general capital and utility capital funds that will allow for the replacement and refurbishment of assets and significant potential investments to assist in the development of housing. The request for proposal for the land off of the Champlain Avenue closed mid last month, and council has reviewed, graded, and returned the matrix to staff to compile the scores. The second RFP for property adjacent to Diana Drive closed on October 29th and is going through the same process. They will meet over the next few weeks to establish the next steps. Earlier in the meeting tonight, we had presentations from 2 potential developers for multi-residential projects within the town. It is exciting to see private development and initiatives driven by council working to fill a void in the marketplace. Both the town and Service Commission staff will work diligently and under the instruction of council to provide advice and move these files forward. As previously announced, the town is working cooperatively with the government of New Brunswick and the Charlotte County Food Bank to provide protein to their customers through a tightly managed deer hunt. This is a pilot project that has been 2 years in the making, primarily through the efforts of Mayor Henderson and Provincial Minister Mike Holland. This is in addition to the annual nuisance hunt that has been going on for the last 4 years. Apologies while I flip pages here. Administration. I am excited to share the news of the new initiative of the Eastern Charlotte Waterway called the Village Car Share Project. Through sponsorship from their organization, they have been able to acquire 4 electric vehicles that will be made available to members in the area for short-term transportation needs. 1 vehicle will be stationed in St. Andrews by the WC Neal Arena, while bookings and pickups are all handled online. It is an exciting opportunity in which they would like to provide more details to council in a presentation later this month. With the Christmas season surprisingly close, the St. Andrews Chamber of Commerce is sponsoring a Shop Local campaign in December. As part of that, we're hoping to have a European-style downtown night market, including the opening of the downtown businesses over 3 days in December. If you are aware of someone who would like to participate in the market, please contact Jen Murphy at the Chamber office. The Planning Advisory Committee had its first meeting in October, in which Chris Fleming was elected chair and Jill Stewart as vice chair. In addition to going over some administrative items, they also reviewed 2 files that were before them for consideration. Even though we have not had a committee for the last couple of years, there is a lot of experience in this group of individuals that have stepped up to serve the community. Staff looks forward to working with them and moving ahead. We will talk with the chair on the best way to communicate their activities to council, so you are aware of the items before them and decisions that are made. I would like to thank the business administration class from the St. Andrews campus of the New Brunswick Community College for volunteering to clean up leaves at both the Sheriff Andrews House and the Ross Memorial Museum. It is an ongoing tradition for the incoming classes to volunteer an afternoon in the fall to assist the community. Thank you to instructor Cindy Mason for reaching out and the members of the class for their participation. The Tourism Accommodation Levy Board has been meeting regularly and would like to do a presentation to council in the next month to highlight their successes and present their 2022 budget as required in our bylaw. Both the CAO and clerk have attended meetings on behalf of council to offer any advice or support on behalf of the municipality. This past summer seemed to be successful and should provide the funding we originally anticipated when this was set up in the beginning of 2020. Staff and council will be preparing a survey to distribute electronically and possibly in a mail out to the community to gauge the impressions of the 2021 downtown traffic flow and other matters related to the operation within the historic business district. It is being created over the next couple of weeks and will be released, should be released in mid-November. Services. As of this meeting, the first users have gone onto the main ice surface and the curling club ice is under construction and should be almost completed. We are a couple of weeks behind after council authorized major equipment replacements in the late spring. Thank you, council, for that. The coordinators the contractors placed orders for equipment and we're struggling to get their supplies and completing the startup of just about every arena in New Brunswick. However, it was completed on Monday, October 25th, and the crews worked overtime to get the ice constructed in less than a week. I'd like to thank Public Works for their strong effort in getting the ice prepared for the community. A reminder that leaf bag sales ended on the 12th of November, with collection stopping after the 16th. After that date, please include them with your regular Thursday garbage for pickup. Public Works was in early to tear down the Water Street one-way project in October, and by most comments received, citizens and businesses appeared to approve of it. Council has asked staff to prepare a survey for distribution to see the overall opinions of it and to determine permanent amendments we should make to the vehicular traffic bylaw that will be updated over the winter time. The Ross Memorial Library can only accept patrons who are fully vaccinated as required under the mandatory order. They do offer alternative services such as online access to materials and curbside pickup for those unable to come in person. If you have any questions on how to access the collections or services, please call the library, where the staff is always admirable to assist you. With the budget process for 2022 almost over, I want to acknowledge all of my staff for their assistance. The department heads met with us to provide input and suggestions on how to improve service or efficiencies, while frontline personnel were asked for suggestions. I want to mention both Terry Acton and Emily Dodden, both of whom did most of the legwork to get the total to get this together and get the total costs and put this completed document together. I also want to thank council for making it a priority over the last few weeks and providing the needed direction to finalize it to the department's regulations. In conclusion, despite the slowdown that winter brings within the town, council and staff will be quite busy with various housing proposals, reviews of bylaws, preparations for 2022 capital projects, including the trail and wharf. So we will need to continue to be efficient and focus our time. It is an exciting time for the town, and systematic deliberation, consultation, and debate will need to take place on many important topics. Staff look forward to continuing the opportunities to work collaboratively. Sincerely, Chris Beer, CAO.
Thank you very much, Mr. Knopper, for reading that, and of course, Mr. Spear for preparing it. You know, a document like that is not something that you put together just sitting down in half an hour. So thank you once again for summarizing the staff reports, which are contained within as well. We do have a financial statement that is provided for us. At this point, is there any questions from any member of council for staff? Okay, so since there's no questions, I'll be looking for a motion to accept the staff reports and financial reports as presented. Can I have a mover, Councillor Heenan, and a seconder be Councillor Gumashell. Any more discussion on the staff reports? Okay, all in favor of approving the staff reports, please signify by saying aye. And that's everyone, so those have been accepted. And for all members of staff that have included them, there is several reports there. It is greatly appreciated in keeping us informed. All right, at this point, we are moving to introduction, consideration, and passing of bylaws and motions. I'll be passing it over to Finance and Administration Chair, Deputy Mayor Kate Akagi.
Thank you, Your Worship. My first one is reference number FA 211007. Approval of the 2022 Town of St. Andrews budget. The background is this: council and staff had working sessions on the 2022 budget on the following dates. But number one was the budget workshop, September 13th, 2021. Budget workshop 2, October 2nd, 2021. Budget workshop 3, October 18th, 2021. And budget presentation, October 27th, 2021. So after the third workshop, council directed staff to host a public presentation on October the 27th, 2021, to give the community an opportunity to hear about the budget and provide feedback. With changes to the Assessment Act process that was implemented in 2020 by the province of New Brunswick, municipalities must complete and submit their budgets by the end of November. So our motion is this: that council approves the 2022 general operating and general capital budget for the town of St. Andrews, as well as the presentations for the same for 2023 to 2026 to be approved. And that the 2022 general operating fund budget totals $5,631,287, including a tax warrant of $4,442,860, based on a mill rate of 1.2 $100,000 for each $100 of assessment. Council orders and directs the levying of by the Minister of Local Government and the Local Governance Reform of said amount on real property liable to taxation under the Assessment Act within the town of St. Andrews. So the action is that the general capital projects in the 2022 budget be funded by $789,717 from the general operating fund and $1,170,000 from the long-term borrowings. $3,759,583 from government grants and $667,500 from the General Capital Reserve Fund. And I so move this.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. A seconder for that motion, Councillor Gumashell. Discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the budget, please signify by saying aye. That is everybody. That has been carried. And just before we jump to the next one, Council, that was a very, I can't believe I'm saying it, but an enjoyable process with you. A lot of big decisions made, and you made them very quickly. And we're actually made some big decisions for next year as well already. And the only other thing I'll add on that is for residents of St. Andrews to be aware that the mill rate is going from $1.26 reduced to $1.20. That is the actions of council and staff realizing that the assessments in the town of St. Andrews and the whole province, but especially in the town of St. Andrews, have gone up significantly. Services do cost more, but we do realize that there is only so much that can be passed on to the taxpayer of St. Andrews, and we hope to continue to grow our tax base. But as we saw from presentations tonight, we want to do that through community growth and not necessarily on the backs of all our current homeowners, if at all possible. So thank you, council and staff, for leading that. And that I don't think that there's going to be a lot of municipalities that reduce their mill rate in the province. So kudos to all of you. Next motion, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion is that council approves the 2022 utility operating fund budget consisting of a total revenue of $1,333,592 and total expenditures of $1,333,592, that the utility capital projects for the 2022 budget be funded by $617,375 from the utility operating fund, $1,214,000 from the long-term borrowing and $250,000 from the Canada Community Building Fund. And I so move.
Thank you. A seconder for that motion. Councillor Hurdle, and discussion on this motion. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the utility operating fund, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That is everybody. That has been passed. I will say, like I did in the previous one, it is important to note that there is a slight increase in water rates that will be happening in the near future in the town of St. Andrews. The reality is the cost of water has gone and dramatically risen. And if the town of St. Andrews does not do something, the amount of debt that we're going to have on that particular fund is not sustainable as a community. Doing nothing, unfortunately, is not an option for us as a community. I will say that for the average household, the mill rate decreased, not that they're the same, but the amount of savings taxpayers will have going $1.26 to $1.20 will be more significant than the increase in your water bill would be if we left it as the $1.26. But we do take into consideration that bills are going up for everywhere you look, and we're trying to make that as minimal as possible. And the town of St. Andrews looks like we're benchmarking ourselves as being middle of the pack for water costs in the province. We're not one of the highest, but we also know that if we're the lowest, we also might not have the water quality we need and be keeping up with asset management. So I just wanted to get into a little bit more context around both those, because those are major decisions that have been made by your town council. And again, a great job done by them. Next motion, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Reference number FA 211007. The amendment, the subject is the amendment number 3 to Bylaw 16-03, a procedural bylaw for the organization and operation of the Council of the Town of St. Andrews and it's the first reading. So the background is this: Bylaw 16-03 governs the organization and operations of the Council of the Town of St. Andrews. Each council has an opportunity to review and make changes to this document. Provided within this report is the amendment number 3 to Bylaw 16-03 for review by council. So the motion is this: that the council grant leave for the first reading to amendment number 3 to Bylaw 16-03, a procedural bylaw for the organization and operation of the Council of the Town of St. Andrews. I so move.
Seconder for that motion. I see Councillor Neal first. Discussion on this motion. Okay, call the question. All those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. That has been everyone, and that has passed. Thank you very much. I believe that's it for you, Deputy Mayor.
Yes,
And
thank
we're going to
you. Later.
Thank you very much for some long reading and a few of those. We'll switch to Councillor Blanchard, which will be public works.
Your worship, you have to
Yep.
read it. You have to actually have to.
Oh,
read it.
sorry. Yes. Thank you very much. Getting way ahead of myself there, right? Let me just jump over here past the staff. This is amendment number A3 to Bylaw 1603, a procedural bylaw for the organization and operation of the Council of the Town of St. Andrews. And once again, thank you, Mr. Knopper, for that technical one. If I get into it, there's no headings, so am I good just to proceed with just doing that? All right, so that was at this point read a first time here on November 8th, 2021. All right, thank you again for that, Mr. Knopper. And we'll switch now to Public Works, which will be Councillor Blanchard. And this is my conflict of interest, so I'll be passing over to Deputy Mayor Akagi. Be back momentarily.
Deputy Mayor, you're muted.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Public Works, Councillor Blanchard. The bylaw 21-05, bylaw respecting the stopping up and permanent closure of part of Victoria Terrace Street, third and final reading, PW 21084-804. Go ahead, Councillor Blanchard.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. You've already read off the reference number in the subject, so I'll just go right into the background. The town has received a request to permanently close a portion of Victoria Terrace Street for a new housing development to be located at PID 151-88543. To close the portion of Victoria Terrace Street, council has to implement a road closure bylaw. Provided with this motion report is a copy of Bylaw 21-05, a bylaw respecting the stopping up and permanent closure of a part of Victoria Terrace. First reading was September the 8th, 2021. Public hearing of objections, September 27th, 2021. And the second reading was October the 4th, 2021. So the motion is that council grant leave for the third and final reading of Bylaw 21-05, bylaw respecting the stopping up and permanent closure of part of Victoria Terrace Street in the town of St. Andrews, and so moved by myself.
Thank you, Councillor Blanchard. We need a seconder. Councillor Heenan. Any more discussion, council? I don't see any. So are you ready for the question? All those in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Contrary minded? None. Carried. Thank you very much, council. So I need to read this through. It's very short, so.
Deputy Mayor, you just have to read it by title. It has been read in full.
Okay. Just a second. You gotta find the right page then.
Page 187 of your package.
Thank you very much. That's what I have. All right, so I don't have to read anything. It's very short. So 187 just says, The bylaw number 21-05, a bylaw respecting the stopping up and permanent closure of part of Victoria Terrace Street. And then this is be the fourth reading. Do I have to read anything else?
Third reading.
Sorry, this would be the third reading and the last reading. So third and final reading of this, the 8th day of November, 2021. Correct. Thank you very much, Councillor, Mr. Knopper and Councillor Blanchard. So we can now have the mayor back.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, for covering for my second conflict tonight, but that should be the final one. At this point, we're switching to public safety, Councillor Neal, which there is no motion. So on to Councillor Hurdle for business, tourism, heritage and culture.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. This is reference number BTHC 211002. Bylaw 21-06, a bylaw of the town of St. Andrews to impose a special business improvement levy for 2022 for second reading. As in the background is this, as part of downtown beautification initiatives, the St. Andrews Business Improvement Area collects an annual levy from its members to pay for its various projects and events. The BIA, established in 1984, is a geographical area between Water Street from Princess Royal to Elizabeth Street. All businesses within this area are within the BIA and subject to the annual levy. As per the Business Improvement Area Act of New Brunswick, council must set the levy annually by bylaw, which also indicates approval for their budget and a public hearing of objection. The public hearing of objections requires a 2-week notification period and a 15-day response period after the final notification. The date for the public hearing of objections will be Monday, November 29th, 2021. And the first reading was Monday, October 25th, 2021. And the motion is that council grants leave for second reading of bylaw 21-06, a bylaw of the town of St. Andrews to impose a special business improvement levy for 2022 in the town of St. Andrews.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hurdle. Could I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Neal. Okay, discussion on this motion. Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor of going to second reading, please signify by saying aye. That is everybody. So we will go to second reading. This is bylaw number 21-06, a bylaw of the town of St. Andrews to impose a special business improvement levy. There is no title, so it was read the first time by in entirety on the 25th day of October, and it's been read now for a second time on November 8th, 2021. And I believe that wraps it up for you, Councillor Hurdle. And there is nothing for Councillor Gillish under Recreation and Community Services this evening, so we're going to move right on to Planning and Economic Development with Councillor Heenan.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. My first is PED 210805, bylaw 21-04, a bylaw respecting encroachment upon public spaces in the town of St. Andrews, third and final reading. The background. Staff has been working on the development of an encroachment bylaw to establish regulations on the use of town space. The bylaw provides an overview of rules, the process of applications, approvals, permitting, appeals, and penalties. This bylaw, under the authority of council, will provide staff with the necessary tools to review, approve, or deny uses in public spaces, including roads, parks, sidewalks, easements, right-of-way, etc., owned by the town of St. Andrews. During discussions at the September 8th, 2021 council meeting, staff was directed to make changes regarding typical use and the need for permits beyond 1 meter of the building facade to bylaw 21-04. This has been added to the bylaw. The first reading was September 8th, 2021. Second reading was October the 4th, 2021. Public hearing of objections was October 25th, 2021. The action and motion is that council grants leave for the third and final reading of bylaw 21-04, a bylaw respecting encroachment upon public spaces in the town of St. Andrews. And I so move that, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. A seconder, Deputy Mayor Akaji. Discussions on this one? Councillor Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question, I guess, comment. Certainly appreciate the work that Mr. Gopin and staff did to address some of my other questions about sandwich board type signage and things like that. I still do have a question about signage in general, in that it is covered under the current town zoning bylaw, where any commercial property or that wishes to display a sign has to have a signage permit for that, correct? And then additionally, on top of that, we are proposing this new encroachment bylaw, which still covers signage. And I know we did address things like the sandwich boards, and if it's within a meter of the building, then it's exempt, I guess, right? So something on a facade doesn't necessarily come under this, but if something extends out over the property, like a lot of the signage that we do have in a lot of the buildings downtown, they will come out beyond that meter, even if it's above the sidewalk or above ground. It still extends out, and they will require an additional permit through the encroachment bylaw that we're passing. So I know the application fee for the encroachment permit is $100. There's also an additional $100 annually that have to pay, that the individual will have to pay, along with the paperwork and things that they have to fill out. Can you please remind me what the signage permit fees are just under the current zoning bylaw?
Mr. Gopin?
I don't deal with sign applications, so I've never taken a fee for one before. It should say on our website though, so let me take a look there. And most signs do not encroach onto public property, so this would only be the case if signs are actually encroaching onto public property. Most businesses do own a little bit into beyond their facade.
So most of the signage downtown, in terms of the overhead signs that extend out from the buildings, would not extend out beyond that 1 meter? Or you're saying that most of the businesses' actual property extends out beyond the 1 meter?
No, well, not their actual property, because then it wouldn't be in the right of way. But I believe, if you have a flag sign on your business, that's definitely not going more than 1 meter. And any sign that's attached to the building, the facade would be would be their property. So unless it's extending a whole meter from the facade, it wouldn't be going into the right of way. So it's mostly the sandwich boards where it becomes the kind of dual thing. It's $50 fee for the sign permit.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Gopin. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's just like I said, the idea of I'll not say a tax, but a double fee, a double permit, for signage. I still struggled with why we would be sort of going after that, and where signage was already covered. I could say it under the current zoning bylaw. I did have some questions about that. I recognize other things encroaching, like stairwells or benches and things like that could be added, which would definitely encroach. I could sort of see that. But I always had the questions about the signage, where it always already seemed to be covered, and we were adding more, red tape, if you will, in terms of forms that needed to be filled out and all that kind of stuff, on top of stuff that was already being done, which had to be done through the signage permit process. So again, like I said, it sounds like most of it will be captured under what exists. There will only be a few, I think, that maybe fall into the encroachment bylaw. So with that, I guess I'm okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blanchard. I see Mr. Knopper has a comment to add.
Yeah, Your Worship, just one note for streamlining. We had talked with the planners about creating a checkbox within the sign permit to have a review of any encroachment applications that would have within it. So the goal would be try to combine and simplify the process to a one pager versus multiple permit applications. So we are looking at ways to streamline and keep the process simple.
Thank you, Mr. Knopper. Any other member
If
of
I may,
council?
Worship.
Go ahead, Mr. Spear.
Part of the reason for it is that a lot of were ending up over on the curb side instead of the store side. And so it's really to control that. And so the 1 meter close to the business isn't the problem. It's when it starts to go out closer to the road So that's really what it's about.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. You broke up a little bit, but it's about, if people are just putting in front of their business, they don't have to pay the extra. It's when they want to jet it onto town property, or if they have a 1 meter sign, they just pay the regular signage fee. It's when they want to extend it and go onto town land, for example. So thank you very much for those comments. It was a little broken, but we were able to. Any other member of council? All right, let's call the question. All those in favor of going to third reading, please signify by saying aye. That is everybody. This has gone to third reading. So I will read it right now by title. It is bylaw number 21-04, a bylaw respecting encroachment upon public spaces in the town of St. Andrews. So be it enacted that this bylaw shall be known as bylaw 2104 and may be cited as the street encroachment bylaw. Number 2 is definitions. Number 3 is a permission required. Number 4 is approval required. Number 5 is licenses. Number 6 is exemptions to this bylaw. Number 7 is appeal. Number 8 is penalties. Number 9 is encroachment agreements. Number 10 is general provisions. It was read the first time on September 8th, 2021. Read a second time on October 4th, 2021. The public hearing of objections was October 25th of 2021. And I've just read it for the third and final time here on the 8th day of November, 2021. Thank you, council. And we're going to continue, I believe, with Councillor Heenan, I believe. Yes.
Yes, your worship. PED 211005, amendments to the Planning Advisory Committee policies for the town of St. Andrews. At the October 20th, 21 meeting, Planning Advisory Committee meeting, the PAC reviewed the governing policies documented for the committee. The PAC recommended the following change. Town of St. Andrews Council Member Policy for the Planning Advisory Committee. Section A, role of the Planning Advisory Committee with the removal of term quasi-judicial. Bullet 2, Town of St. Andrews Rules of Operation and Procedures Planning Advisory Committee, reordered sections 20 through 24. Section 31, consideration to have staggered terms to membership appointment by council. Section 33, addition of agenda titles, new business and member comments, questions. Bullet number 3, roles of Planning Advisory Committee, Development Officer, and Building Inspector. There were minor spelling edits to section 1.14 and 2.9. And the motion, your worship, is that council accepts the amendment document of PAC St. Andrews Operating Rules and Procedures revised on October the 21st, 2021. And I so move that, your worship.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. A seconder. Councillor Hurdle, discussion on this one. This was a request that was made by the PAC themselves, and staff has reviewed it and had no concerns. Is there any concerns from any member of council? Okay, let's call the question. All those in favor of approving this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That is everybody, and that motion has passed as well. Okay, so at this point, we have got through all of our formal motions. So thank you, council, for reading your motions. We're in new business, however, and there is one more motion, which will go to Councillor Blanchard.
Thank you, your worship. Yes, so reference number PW211105, subject Eastern Charlotte Waterways, the village program electric vehicle parking exemption. So for the background, Eastern Charlotte Waterways is operating a new electric vehicle transportation program, excuse me, under the village car share project. And the goal is to provide 4 electric vehicles in communities across Charlotte County for use by the public. As part of this program, St. Andrews is being provided a vehicle that will be parked at the W.C. O'Neill Arena for ride sharing among its members. Due to the winter parking ban in the community, starting November the 15th, staff are seeking an exemption for this vehicle only. Town staff are being provided keys to the vehicle and will move it when plowing. If other vehicles begin to park by the electric vehicle, they will be subject to the winter parking ban and all penalties associated with this. So the motion is that council approves an exemption to the winter parking ban in the town of St. Andrews for the Eastern Charlotte Waterway electric vehicle being parked at the W.C. O'Neill Arena for the purposes of the community rideshare program, and I so move.
And could I have a seconder for that last motion? I see Councillor Gumashell. Discussion on this one? Councillor Heenan.
Thank you, Counselor, and thank you, Your Worship. I just have an issue that we need to identify this car as being part of the town of St. Andrews or a parking spot, because people will use it. You know they will. They'll park beside it and say, well, this car has been here all night. Why can't mine? I'm just concerned about the fact that people, as they are when the snow falls on the car, all cars look alike. And so I'm just concerned that it's going to, I'm all for giving them the spot. I want to be perfectly clear on it. It's just that I think there needs to be a parking sign that says reserved for. That would be just my, that would just be my opinion, and it would be reserved 24/7, 7 days a week. And that way it shows that that's what it is, because as soon as there's an inch of snow on it, people are going to say, oh, they're parking at the arena. That's just my concern. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heenan. There will be a sign dedicated for this parking spot reserved, so we can add some type of wording to that to make sure people know that it is part of a car sharing program. It's also important to note that staff themselves will have a card to actually be able to back this up, plow it out, and then put it back in. They'll be the town of St. Andrews is a partner in this program, but duly noted, if one's there, someone might put it in beside it. So fair enough. So we'll note that, Mr. Spear, as a takeaway. Councillor Blanchard.
Yeah, Worship, just a question. Where exactly, I know it's parked at the arena, but where exactly would the electric vehicle parking spot be? I assumed it would be close. Well, I don't even know. I assumed initially when I saw it, it would be close to where the charging stations are, but I know the charging stations that exist there are through NB Power, and I believe the town is having one installed specifically for this, but I might be incorrect there. I'm not sure.
Correct. So it'll have kind of almost two spots. So there'll be one that it will be parked at sometimes during the day when it's on the slow charge. When you leave it, you're supposed to leave it on the slow charge, but they've asked for one towards the front of the arena to have better visibility. As a lot of people, if you put it in behind the arena, it's not as ideal. And the other thing is, behind the arena, you're more prone to maybe vandalism or anything like that. We're talking about a camera, but having it out in front and kind of obviously it markets the program, but it also has it in a more ideal, safe location as well. So it'll be behind the arena, but when it's not being used and it's charged, it'll be out front to promote the program, is my understanding. But users know that it will be either in front or about the charging station when they go to pick it up. And it can only be returned when they're done to those locations. It cannot be returned anywhere else. Any other member of council? Any other questions? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. That is everybody that has been approved. And I don't know about you, but I'm excited at the opportunity. I know it's just going to be in a pilot project, but the opportunity to have a car share program in the town of St. Andrews for no tax, really no charge to the taxpayer of St. Andrews. It's an exciting opportunity. So I want to thank Eastern Charlotte Waterways for working with the town to provide that. And it's greatly appreciated. So that gets us through the motions question period. Did anything come in, Mr. Knopper?
Your Worship, I do have one question, so bear with me. It is from Joanne Kearney, 22 Parr Street. And it goes, question, there have been 2 presentations for development this evening and more presentations are expected for other developments. If the town is being asked for assistance with providing water and sewer or for subsidizing the land itself, then cannot the town also ensure that some of the units are guaranteed affordable and subsidized housing in exchange? For example, the first presentation tonight included an ask from the town to supply the water main. Perhaps in return, the town could ask for 2 units to be guaranteed subsidized housing.
Thank you. Those are very legitimate comments. I will say that it's one thing if we're subsidizing affordable housing. It's another thing if we're subsidizing private development for profit. It's going to be a balance that council is going to have to consider. I will say that it does appear that a number of opportunities are all coming together at the same time. So you're going to see some meaningful conversations coming from council in the near future on which way they're going to go. Obviously, if you look at the budget that council just passed this evening, there's only a set amount of dollars that we actually are allocating towards housing projects. So council is in a really good position in the fact that they're going to have to pick the projects that they wish to support. Out of everything that we've done between our RFPs and some new opportunities that will be coming out in the public spotlight in the near future, there is more, believe it or not. Council is going to have to prioritize and see with the taxpayer of St. Andrews money, what can they make the most influence. I think it's safe to say that affordable housing is the #1 priority, but we also know that spurring development sometimes makes sense. You know, you might have to put some dollars up front, but over the course of 5-10 years, you actually might make that money back plus more. So there is a lot more conversation to come, but the point is duly noted that if we're using tax dollars to subsidize these, we have to have an ask in return. So I appreciate those comments. Do anyone else want to add anything on that, or do you think that everyone aligned with that? All right, thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Nopper?
Through your worship, no, that's all the questions.
Perfect. We're going to move now into councillors' comments and deputy mayors. Anything that anyone would like to add at this particular time? Councillor Blanchard.
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick comment on a conference I was lucky enough to be able to attend a couple weeks ago. So thank you to the town for paying the registration fee, which allowed me to participate in the Sustainable Communities Conference put on by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So a number of different sessions. Again, this is a virtual conference, October I guess it was the 19th through the 21st. Elected officials, representatives from Indigenous communities, municipal staff, industry partners, and representatives from nonprofits across the country. A number of different sessions on local financing programs for home energy upgrades rather, community paths to net zero, climate change and community facilities, alternatives to municipal composting programs, and a number of other sessions, including funding and support for sustainable, affordable housing. So a lot of information I was able to provide and bring back a lot of that information to town staff and share that with town staff along with council. But again, just thanks to the mayor and thanks to the town staff for allowing me to participate. I think it was a very worthwhile conference for sure. And again, a number of contacts. I was able to make a number of contacts and some really good pilot programs and other examples of programs specifically around sustainable housing and affordable housing. Some good examples to people to call on, sort of see how they did things. So I'm excited to sort of share that information with the rest of council. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Blanchard, for attending that conference. We talked about our portfolios. We want us all to be leaders in our portfolio. So if any other member of council finds some type of workshop or conference that is relevant, that they think could benefit the town of St. Andrews, I'm all about, all of us working together to have the most presence we can for this community. So Councillor Blanchard, thanks for stepping up, and all your work with the environmental committee. You're the right person to attend that. So thank you very much. Any other member of council? All right, I just wanted to recognize this is our last meeting before Remembrance Day. This year as a community, we won't be gathering like we always did at the All Saints Anglican Church due to COVID-19 restrictions, but just wanted to remind everybody that CHCO TV will be doing a broadcast of our ceremony. It'll be a lovely ceremony. I had the opportunity to participate and lay a wreath for the town of St. Andrews, but very limited numbers. But just as was indicated in the CAO's report, we have a number of veterans in our community, and it certainly is a time to reflect of the sacrifices that were made, but also we've got some people that are still continuing to serve that live in our community. And I know that there's a few families that have just their children that are still serving as well. So, lest we forget, and thank you for all of our current members that are serving. I have nothing else to add other than we will be going to closed session. So I will say at 8:30 p.m. All of that council move to go to closed session under Local Governance Act 68(1)G. And that is litigation or potential litigation affecting the local government or any corporation referred to in subsection 8.1, the local government agencies, board or commissions, including a matter before an administrative tribunal. And as well as indicated earlier, also for Local Governance Act, Section 68(1)D, the proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land. So could I have a mover for that? I see Councillor Neal and seconded by Councillor Gumashell. Any discussion on going into closed? Okay, all in favor of going to closed, please signify by saying aye. And we are in closed session. Mr. Knopper, I'll give you a moment just to transition us over. Then come out of closed session. Councillor Gumashell, a seconder. Councillor Heenan, all in favor of coming out of closed session? That's everybody. We're in a closed session. A motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Akaji, as always. Seconder, Councillor Hurdle. All in favor of adjourning? Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Night, everyone.